They won't always say it, but you'll feel it. The pause in conversation when you enter the room. The glance that lingers a second too long, then quickly looks away. The way laughter dulls just slightly as you get closer. It's subtle, but unmistakable. You start to wonder, did I do something wrong? The answer is no. You're not loud. You're not confrontational. You're not trying to dominate the space. You're just fully present. And in a world addicted to noise, that alone can feel like a disruption. You don't smile to please. You don't rush to fill the silence. You don't pretend to be someone you're not. And that's exactly why people shift around you. Because your presence doesn't flatter their ego. It challenges it. You don't seek approval. You seek truth. And that makes people uncomfortable, especially those who've spent their lives avoiding it. Carl Jung called this the unconscious transmission of the self. It's the silent energy you carry when you've faced your own darkness, when you've stopped running from your pain, when you've decided to become who you really are, no matter the cost. It's not about arrogance. It's not about pride. It's about alignment with your values, with your depth, with the parts of you most people hide. And that kind of presence, it doesn't go unnoticed, because when you stop performing, others start feeling exposed. When you stand in your truth, they're forced to notice the places where they've betrayed theirs. You're not too much, you're just awake. And in a world built on illusion, that makes you dangerous. You didn't change the room, you changed yourself. And that change, quiet, steady, internal, is what unsettles people. They feel it before they understand it. The way you hold yourself, the way you speak only when there's something worth saying, the way your silence says more than their words ever could. It's not that you intimidate them. It's that your presence reminds them of the gap between who they are and who they could be. That's the unspoken shift. You've noticed it, how conversations bend around you, how people become overly polite or strangely distant, how some grow louder, trying to reclaim control of the space. Others go quiet, unsure of how to respond to someone who isn't playing the usual social game. Because most people don't know what to do with authenticity. It's not predictable. It doesn't follow the script. They expect small talk. You bring presence. They expect agreement. You bring honesty. They expect performance. You bring stillness. And stillness in a room full of noise is deafening. You don't have to say a word. Your energy speaks for you. It says, I see through the mask. I've faced my fear. I've chosen truth over comfort. And when someone hasn't done that work, your very existence becomes a mirror. Not the flattering kind, but the honest one. The kind that shows them what they've avoided. So they shrink, they gossip, they create distance. Not because you're wrong, but because they're not ready to face what you reflect. And that's the paradox of presence. The more whole you become, the more fragmented others feel in comparison. Not because you asked them to change, but because you showed them what change looks like. That's why they call you intense, serious, different. But what they really mean is, you make me feel things I'm not ready to feel. There's a weight you carry, not a burden, not shame, but a kind of groundedness that comes from doing the inner work. People sense it. Even if they don't know what it is, they feel it in the way you pause before speaking, in the way your eyes stay steady when others look away, in the way you're not rushing to be liked, to be noticed, to be anything other than what you are. That weight, what Carl Jung would call psychic gravity, isn't something you perform, it's something you become. You've met your shadow, you've sat with discomfort, you've told yourself the truth when it would have been easier to lie. And because of that, your energy is different. It doesn't flatter, it reveals. It doesn't chase, it draws. It doesn't entertain, it resonates. And that resonance, it disrupts the performance others are trying to keep alive. You walk into a meeting and suddenly the room feels tenser. You join a conversation and people shift their posture, choose their words more carefully. Someone who seemed confident 5 minutes ago now seems unsure. But you didn't do anything. You just showed up whole. Jung believed that the self, when integrated, emits an unconscious signal, a kind of invisible language that others receive, even if they can't explain what they're feeling. That's why your presence triggers reactions, not because you're acting superior, but because your alignment makes their disconnection impossible to ignore. And so you become the mirror, the one who reminds people of the promises they haven't kept to themselves, of the truth they've buried beneath convenience, of the life they could be living if only they were willing to face what you've already faced. You don't have to say a word, you just have to walk in. Because some people carry chaos, but you carry clarity. And clarity, especially in a world drowning in noise, is the most disarming presence of all. You've likely felt it for years now, that subtle but persistent distance. People open up to you, then pull away. They say they've never felt so seen, so understood, so safe, and then almost overnight they disappear. They stop replying, they make excuses, they fade. And you're left wondering again, what did I do? But it's not something you did, it's something you are. When your energy carries truth, depth, and self-awareness, it doesn't just make people feel heard, it makes them feel exposed. You didn't wound them, you revealed them. And for someone who spent a lifetime building walls, that kind of connection can feel like a threat. Not because it hurts, but because it reaches places they've locked away, places they're not ready to revisit. Carl Jung believed that when we meet someone whose energy mirrors our hidden self, we experience what he called a numinous encounter, something sacred, powerful, and unsettling. You've become that encounter, not just a friend, not just a listener, but a living symbol of what's possible when someone chooses inner alignment over social comfort. And not everyone is ready for that level of honesty. They might admire it from a distance, they might even crave it, but to stand close to it, to stand close to you, requires a kind of inner courage most people haven't yet developed. So they retreat, they reframe the story. You were too intense, too distant, too much. But the truth is you were simply present, fully, authentically, unapologetically, and your presence disrupted their narrative. It whispered there's more to feel, more to see, more to become. And for many that whisper is too loud to bear. So they walk away, not because they didn't value the connection, but because they weren't ready for it. Not yet. There's a myth we're taught early on, that if you're kind, calm, and honest, the world will welcome you. But the truth is, when you become deeply aligned with yourself, when your presence carries the weight of clarity and the silence of truth, you often become a threat. Not because you're unkind, but because you can't be controlled. You've likely noticed it most with people who hold authority, supervisors, teachers, dominant personalities in social groups. They might not say anything outright, but the energy shifts. Suddenly, they're defensive. They question your motives, your tone, your choices, when all you did was stay grounded in your truth. Why? Because control thrives in environments of uncertainty, and your presence, rooted, self-aware, untangled from approval, dismantles that dynamic. You walk in, and without trying, the old hierarchy starts to wobble. People sense it, that you're not looking to impress, that you're not driven by fear, that you cannot be guilted, flattered, or pushed off center. Jung believed that those who've integrated their power, their inner king or inner queen archetype, don't need to demand respect. They embody it, quietly, naturally. It radiates from them like gravity, not a loud pull, just a steady, undeniable presence. And for those whose identity is built on dominance or external validation, that's deeply unsettling. Because if power can exist without force, without control, then everything they've built starts to feel hollow. You've probably seen it in their eyes, that flicker of confusion, that impulse to reassert themselves. They may challenge you, dismiss you, or even label you as difficult. But deep down, they know your power isn't something they can take. It's something you earned through solitude, through self-examination, through the slow, painful process of becoming real. And no one can steal that from you, because real power isn't loud. It's quiet, rooted, unshakable, and in a world obsessed with performance, that kind of authenticity is revolutionary. There's a moment that keeps repeating in your life. You enter with kindness. You show up fully, openly, without masks. You speak gently, offer honesty, extend presence. No hidden agenda, no manipulation. And somehow you still become the villain in someone's story. They say you're cold, aloof, arrogant. They twist your silence into judgment, your self-respect into pride, your calm into emotional distance. It doesn't make sense, at least not at first. But Carl Jung had a name for this. Projection. When someone is unwilling to face a part of themselves, an insecurity, a flaw, a buried pain, they unconsciously project it onto someone else. And people like you, those who carry clarity, depth, and self-possession, become the perfect screen. Because your presence reflects everything they don't want to see. You didn't betray them. You didn't reject them. You didn't even speak poorly of them. You simply showed them who they really are. Not with accusations, but by being a living contradiction to their illusion. They say, "You think you're better than me." But what they mean is, "You remind me that I could be better and I'm not ready." They say, "You made me feel judged." But what they mean is, "Your honesty stirred something I've worked hard to keep buried." They say, "You changed." But what they mean is, "You're no longer willing to shrink from my comfort." And that's the hidden cost of being whole. You don't just lose the masks, you lose the connections that depended on them. But hear this clearly. You are not the villain for being real. You are not wrong for choosing alignment over approval. You are not too much. You're just no longer willing to abandon yourself to be digestible to others. And the people who are only comfortable with the unhealed version of you will always mistake your growth for distance. Let them. Because your job isn't to be understood by everyone. It's to live in truth. And truth, by its very nature, will always disturb the lies. There's something else you've probably noticed. Strangers are drawn to you. Not in the way people chase status or charm, but in a quieter, more mysterious way. In grocery stores, on park benches, in elevators or waiting rooms. Someone starts talking, and before you know it, they're telling you something raw. Something real. Something they haven't said out loud in years. And they'll say it almost with confusion. "I don't know why I'm telling you this." But you do. Because you felt it your whole life. That pull you have. That quiet gravity. That strange ability to open doors inside people they didn't even know were locked. Carl Jung called this numinous energy. It's not about charisma, not about cleverness. It's not something you learn. It's something you carry. A kind of soul-level presence that others feel even if they can't name it. You don't ask for it. You don't seek it. But when someone who is hurting meets someone who is whole, or becoming whole, they feel safe. Not because you say the right things, but because your energy speaks a language their soul remembers. A language of stillness, of depth, of truth. That's why the broken come to you, why the lost are drawn in, why people seem to know instinctively that they can trust you with their pain. But there's a paradox here too, because as much as others feel seen by you, you often feel unseen in return. You listen deeply, you hold space, you carry weight that isn't yours. And yet when the moment passes, they walk away lighter, and you're left carrying what they couldn't hold. And still, you don't regret it, because you understand something most don't. This isn't a burden, it's a calling. To be someone who reminds others of their humanity, not by preaching, but by being. By walking through life with a soul that doesn't flinch when the masks come off. But even so, there are nights when it gets heavy, when you wonder if anyone will ever see you the way you've seen them. That's the quiet ache of those with healing energy. You hold others together, but who holds you?